everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on Twitter, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. As always, I am Bryson Carver, and ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it is officially Super Bowl week. We are just 6 days away, 6 days and about a half hour away from kickoff in Las Vegas between the Niners and the Chiefs. I am hyped about this. I'm not even a fan of either team. I'm a Steelers fan for crying out loud. But this is a fantastic matchup. We're going to get a lot into sort of the nuts and bolts of the matchup throughout the week, especially on Wednesday and on Friday. Certainly on Friday when I make my official prediction for the game. But I'm going to start talking about Patrick Mahomes in terms of his all-time status, his all-time ranking. Many of you know that ever since he won the Super Bowl a year ago against the Eagles, I've had him as the fourth greatest quarterback of all time. He will pass number 3. I'll tell you exactly who number 3 is. You could probably see on the title of the show who that is. I'll detail why that is the case in just a second. Also getting into LeBron James and some there's some mixed messaging going on with the Knicks towel and the Lakers getting a big-time win over New York on Saturday night. A red-hot New York team, mind you. Getting into that and sort of where I'm at with the Lakers in terms of where they're at and why I still believe they're a championship contender, even despite the fact that they are kind of mediocre. Their record would say just as much, especially where they're at in the seeding. I'll discuss that. Also, I'll tell you what, the more Micah Parsons talks, the more I can't stand it. It's like, listen, y'all might be mad. I'm talking Cowboys. Well, Micah Parsons is supplying me with a lot of content right now, which to a certain degree, I'm thankful for him for doing. But in another regard, I'm like, dude, stop talking. Okay, I'm going to discuss that in about 45 to 50 minutes. In between that, sandwiched in between that and the LeBron segment, Kliff Kingsbury hired by the Washington Commanders. I absolutely love this for Washington. It follows a formula that wins in today's NFL. I'll discuss that. And at the end of today's show, very excited to get into, what do we got at the end of today's show? I just blanked for a second. At the end of the show, yeah, Steph Curry. Yeah, how could I forget that? Steph Curry dropped 60. And then my Warriors lost on Saturday night. But I'm hopeful, if a few things happen, that the Warriors, the 60-point performance by Steph shows the Warriors can indeed compete for the Western Conference title. I'll detail that in just a second. But very excited to get into the show today. But first, so much has been made over, especially the last year, since the Chiefs won their second title in 4 seasons. They're now looking for their third title in 5 seasons, competing in Super Bowl 58 against the San Francisco 49ers. Much has been made about Mahomes' all-time ranking, the Chiefs' all-time ranking. Are they a dynasty? Are they not? I believe they're a dynasty. If they win on Sunday, it will leave without a shadow of a doubt. They're absolutely a dynasty. 3 times, 3 Super Bowls in 5 years. Only a select few teams have accomplished that. It's unbelievable. But I have said since that title against Philadelphia that I believe Mahomes, with that win, because he had 2 MVPs, 2 regular season MVPs, 2 Super Bowl wins, 2 Super Bowl MVPs, and the start to his career is only paralleled by Tom Brady. And Tom Brady, even individually, didn't accomplish what Mahomes did. And that's not to say Mahomes is greater than Brady. I still think he and every single quarterback ever has miles to go to catch Tom. Okay? That said, he's on pace to potentially for you Brady stans, and I am one, get on me, to catch Tom. Who he will catch, and it's not arguable, is Peyton Manning if he wins this game on Sunday against the 49ers. It's not arguable. He beats him in virtually everything except for MVPs. Let's look at the regular season, because Peyton Manning is, I've argued, if Peyton Manning mirrored his regular season performance in the postseason, might have an argument against Brady as the greatest quarterback of all time because he got more MVPs than Brady. There was a point in time when Peyton retired, he only had 2 fewer titles than Brady. And by the way, LeBron only has 2 fewer titles than Michael, and many, myself included, considering the GOAT. So Peyton at one point or another had a case had he had the postseason success. So let's look at Peyton's regular season numbers or averages compared to Mahomes. Okay, let's look at him right here. Mahomes beats him in literally everything. For the podcast audience, those that can't see the graphic, I'll read it off here, okay? In his regular season career, Mahomes throws for about 296 yards per game. Manning threw for 270. Mahomes throws for about 2.28 touchdown passes per game. Manning threw for 2.03. And Manning, at the time he retired, was the all-time leader in touchdown passes for context. Yards per attempt, Mahomes got Manning beat 7.9 to 7.7. Mahomes got Peyton beat in completion percentage, 66.5 to 65.3. So Mahomes on more yards per attempt completes a higher percentage of his passes than Peyton. Passer rating, pretty big gap there. Mahomes is at 103.5. Peyton is at 96.5. Win percentage, Mahomes wins about 77% of his games. Peyton won about 70% of his games. And again, Peyton's regular season numbers are, again, you look at those are very impressive. And again, when you look at the totality, when Peyton retired, all-time leader in passing yards, all-time leader in touchdown passes. And I believe all-time leader in wins as well, or at least he tied. I think he tied Brett Favre at the time he retired for the most all-time regular season wins. And Mahomes beats him in every single category from an average standpoint and is on pace to pass him in virtually every statistical category in the long run. It's the postseason where the gap is the Grand Canyon. And mind you, this is Peyton Manning we're talking about. This is number one overall player in high school, number one overall player in college, go Vols, number one overall player selected in the 1998 draft by the Colts, won 4 MVPs there, won a championship, went to another, then he went to Denver. Everybody thought his career was over. He goes to another 2 Super Bowls, wins another MVP. By the way, still holds the record for most touchdown passes in a season with 55, orchestrated one of the greatest offenses we've ever seen, came back 2 years later on kind of in a game manager role because his physical skills had deteriorated. Peyton's resume is phenomenal. The only ones that I think eclipse it are Brady and Montana, which is why up until a potential Chiefs win on Sunday, I got Peyton third all time. But the postseason numbers between Mahomes and Manning, again, the gap is literally the Grand Canyon. Mahomes, will show you just a second. Mahomes does not just beat Peyton. He runs laps around Manning. We'll show it right here, okay? Mahomes, in the playoffs, throws for about 282 yards per game. Manning threw for about 271. Mahomes, the gap here is massive. Throws for about 2.29 touchdown passes per game. 2.29. Manning throws for about 1.48. Yards per attempt, Mahomes beats him 7.7 to 7.1. Completion percentage, Mahomes got him about 67.5%. Peyton's at 63%. Passer rating is a colossal gap. Mahomes, a better passer rating in the postseason than in the regular season, 106. Peyton's postseason passer rating, 87 to 106. Win percentage, again, huge gap. Mahomes wins 82% of his playoff games, first all time, mind you. Peyton wins like 52% of his games, barely half, and it's reflected in the playoff record. Mahomes has just as many playoff wins as Peyton in 10 less games. Mahomes has 14 playoff wins, Peyton has 14. The difference is Mahomes has 3 losses, Peyton has 13. And they both have 2 Super Bowls, but Mahomes has got him beat in Super Bowl MVPs. And of course, with a win, that's like the one area, that and regular season MVPs, where Mahomes does not have Peyton surpassed. Like at that point, it's not, and by the way, I say all that to say this, I'm a massive Peyton guy. Before I really kind of came around on Brady and stopped my hating ways, so to speak, around like 2016 when he made the 28-3 comeback on Atlanta, I was like, Peyton's a guy. And I still love Peyton. Vol for life, greatest quarterback by far in Tennessee Vols history. Top 3 quarterbacks ever, and again, will remain on Mount Rushmore. But I think, and some might say, well, it's too early to proclaim Mahomes as this or that. It is never, new rule for Carving Up Live. It is never too early to proclaim, to already establish somebody as an all-timer if their resume and their overall talent says they're an all-timer. I mean, Michael Jordan, maybe some of this is revisionist history, I don't know, but Bulls players and teammates and coaches, Bulls teammates and coaches said during the Last Dance, and I believe them when they say this, that day one Michael was the best player at practice. A few years in the league, Michael dropped 63 in the playoff game to Boston. I get that they lost the game. He dropped 63 as a virtual kid in the NBA. LeBron, about 5 years into his career, was like, yeah, Kobe's got him beat in terms of the accomplishments. LeBron's the better player. Okay, scores just as well, passes better, rebounds better, defends better. I mean, or at least just as well as Kobe. Kobe was a great defender, God rest his soul. But LeBron was just as good, if not better, as a 22, 23-year-old. It was okay, and in won MVPs at that point. Had already surpassed Kobe in MVPs around that time. It was okay to proclaim LeBron as this. Not as the greatest ever, not quite yet, but at a certain degree already, because we could see it. Man was deemed the chosen one as a teenager. I mean, Mahomes' rookie year, the left-handed passes, the no-look passes, the year one 50 touchdown passes. Yes, Andy Reid. Yes, Travis Kelce. Yes, now this year, the defense. But Andy Reid wasn't winning Super Bowls before Mahomes got there. Travis Kelce was a very good tight end. He ascended into an all-time great, in my view, the greatest tight end ever with the ascension of Mahomes. And by the way, you look at this receiving core, and that's something else Peyton had too. Say what you want, Peyton didn't have very good defenses in his career. That was kind of the defense of Peyton, is like, well, he didn't have as good a defenses as Brady did. True, but he also had way better receiving cores than Tom did back in the day. And way better receiving cores if you look at this year's Chiefs team than Mahomes has. I mean, we're talking Valdez, Scantling, Rashee Rice I like. I think Rashee Rice is going to be a really nice player in this league. But we're talking Valdez, Scantling. We're talking Justin Watson at the times he's been healthy. You know, we're talking Sky Moore from time to time. Kadarius Toney hasn't played a single playoff game. All due respect to the guy, probably a good thing for the Kansas City Chiefs. Like what he's doing, it's not just that he'll pass Peyton in Super Bowls with a win on Sunday. And he's already got him in Super Bowl MVPs. And again, virtually every other average statistic out there and overall statistic out there already passed Peyton in playoff wins if he wins on Sunday with 9 fewer playoff starts than Peyton Manning. He's not the GOAT yet. He's got, again, I want to emphasize this. He's got a ways to go to become the greatest quarterback of all time. Because Brady set so high of a bar, it's almost silly in terms of Super Bowls, longevity, one with 2 different franchises, like all the records, all of the above. It is not too early to proclaim he is better than one of the 3 greatest quarterbacks of all time. And in terms of ability, he's absolutely better than Montana. But greater, Montana was 4-0 in the Super Bowl, multiple Super Bowl MVPs. Like, again, I think if he gets that 4th title next year and years in the future, he'll absolutely pass Montana to become number 2. But in virtually it won't even be arguable at this point. It's barely arguable now. I still got Peyton by an inch over Patrick. But at that point, it will become a virtual non-starter from a debate standpoint, where the debate will start to become, okay, is it Mahomes or is it Montana? And that'll be a legitimate argument. Mahomes, Brady, still not there yet. Mahomes, Peyton, Super Bowl on Sunday, he surpasses him, and there's no questions asked. He is undeniably better than Peyton, because that's one thing, too, with Peyton. Then we'll move on. As great as Peyton Manning was, one that always kind of the knock on Peyton, just didn't show up in the playoffs. Wasn't that guy come January? Had some clunkers in the Super Bowl. That Super Bowl against Seattle, I get that was the Legion of Boom. I understand that. But that also was one of the greatest offenses ever in Denver, and they scored 8 points. You know, yes, Mahomes had the clunker against Tampa Bay, but he's also had some phenomenal Super Bowl moments. The comeback on San Francisco in Super Bowl 54 when he delivered one of the greatest throws I've ever seen in my life. Off his back foot on 3rd and 15, flinging it 50 yards down the field to Tyreek to really start the comeback midway through the 4th quarter, which the Chiefs went on to win 31-20. Then the comeback against Philly on one leg. We have iconic moments with Patrick. We really don't have that many with Peyton. And I love Peyton. I want to, before you Peyton stands, and I am one, get on me. I love Peyton. What Patrick is doing does not minimize what Peyton Manning accomplished. The sheriff, he did it all. He didn't do what this guy's doing. No, it's not even arguable. Win on Sunday? Yeah, Mahomes passes Peyton. No questions asked. Okay, John Rivera, my man, Fan Perspective Podcast. Shout out John. And Henny Dre as well. John's willing to go a step further. He says if he wins this one, he is number 2. Okay. You know what? But you know what I said, though? He's absolutely better than Montana. In terms of pure ability, Mahomes, I've always said, he's the best quarterback ever. Not the greatest. Greatest, best, 2 different things. He's the best ever. So in that regard, of course, he surpasses Montana in that regard. In terms of greatness, like I said, you can make the case. Because he will have, how many MVPs Montana win? 1, 2, something like that. So Mahomes minimum will have, I don't know, I didn't check Montana's numbers because I was more focused on the Peyton argument. But, you know, matter of fact, let me check that. I'm actually kind of curious now. Thanks for bringing this up, John. Because I'm actually curious. How many MVPs did, because obviously Mahomes has 2. How many does Joe have? Okay, I'm trying to find this. Let's check his Wikipedia. That's always a good source, right? Despite what the teachers tell you in school, it's always a good. Joe Montana. Okay, he has 2. He won back-to-back in 89 and 90. Okay, so he has, like I said, Mahomes. I said he'll have either has as many MVPs as Joe or more. So he's got an equal MVPs. One has to assume Mahomes is going to get at least one more MVP before he's done. And again, he's not even 30 yet. But there's a credible case. There is. I would still put Joe over Mahomes because 4 for 4 in the Super Bowl. Again, right there, 2 MVPs. He'd have more Super Bowls at this point than Mahomes does. But, I mean, it starts to become an interesting argument. Now, Brady, it's going to be a long ways to catch Brady. Manning, he's got Manning if he wins on Sunday. And John may have a point. He may have Montana. Listen, maybe I'll come in a week from today and be like, you know what, guys? You know what? Yeah, he's number 2. I don't know. I need to see how the game plays out. Because sometimes, and there's nothing wrong with this, people like myself, other content creators, we get beaten up all the time on social media by everybody who's an expert, has never made a mistake in their lives, about how, you change your opinions all the time. Yeah, with new data. And with a new outlook and a mindset and sitting back and just thinking, like when LeBron broke, prime example for me personally, is when LeBron broke Kareem's record last year, all-time scoring record. And he broke it, and then I came out on my midweek show used to be on Thursday before I moved it to Wednesday. It was on Thursday. I did the show, talked about LeBron. But even leading up to that, after he broke the record, it was a Tuesday night at Crypto.com Arena. 2 days later, I did the show. I'm just thinking, I'm stroking my beard, and I'm thinking, I'm like, It just like, I'm spending some time on this. I'm like, yeah, he's the greatest ever. Yeah, and it's not just that, obviously. I guess that was what I needed. And, all-time scoring leader. It's not exactly a bad thing to have on your resume. But I just kind of sat, I was like, yeah, he's the greatest ever. He's the greatest basketball player ever lived. And I know this could open up a whole can of worms on LeBron and Michael, and that's like the sports debate. I get that. But that was sort of my epiphany. Maybe I'll have that epiphany, at least for Mahomes in the 2 spot, if they win on Sunday. John, imagine if Pat hits his villain mode. He might. And I considered, thanks for saying that, John, because I've considered this week, not today's show, but as the week progresses and like media nights tonight in Vegas with all the players for both teams, I thought about doing a segment, whether it's Wednesday, whether it's Friday, about how ridiculous this whole Chiefs are the villain of the NFL thing. Like the Patriots, I got why they were the villain. Heck, my Warriors. Love my Warriors to the moon and back. I got why we were the villain once we got Kevin Durant. Kansas City, it's like, well, if they're a villain, they're like who's a likable villain? Okay, like, I don't know. Heath Ledger's Joker. Okay, the guy's a psychopath, but you're like, I almost, maybe this is just me, but I'm like, in a weird way, I'm almost rooting for him. Maybe they're that. And I don't think they're as diabolical as the Joker is. I don't know. Just think of like whatever your version of a likable villain is, and there's plenty of those out there. One's not coming to my mind right off the bat, but I don't know. I got why that. There's a lot of reasons I can get into later this week, like why the Patriots were disliked, why my Warriors were disliked. But like the Bulls of the 90s were not disliked at all. They were celebrated. Frankly, that's how I think every dynasty should be treated, not with preferential treatment. Not that you can't criticize them, but we should enjoy greatness while we have it. Maybe it's because of the toxic social media culture, all these debates. Again, LeBron, Jordan, which I mentioned. People can't give somebody flowers without taking a shot at them. It seems like that these days, which is a real shame. Like I was saying about LeBron today, like it's when LeBron's done, there's going to be a lot of people. They won't say it publicly, but they'll be like, man, I didn't give him his flowers while he's still playing. And now the league's just not the same, you know? That's with a lot of players too. Let's see. John. Well, they are rooting against the Chiefs for the first time. Do you mean in these playoffs? Are you talking about like the general public, like the country, like, because it seemed like the Chiefs have been like everybody's pulling for Baltimore, everybody's pulling for Buffalo. First round, I don't think anybody like that. That was my all-time. That's why this segment every week, and I won't have many more opportunities to play it, so I'll play it today. That's why my weekly Friday segment called
Betting Man.
If I Were a Bet Man was my favorite bet, if I were a bet man, of the year. is Chiefs minus 4.5. And the line kept going up and people were like, oh, take the Dolphins, take the Dolphins. I'm like, are you out of your mind? It's the fourth coldest game ever. Tua is terrible in weather conditions lower than 70. Mahomes is a great cold weather quarterback. This is easy. The Chiefs had a week off because they sat most of their guys against the Chargers the week before. So I don't know. Yeah, it's everybody's pulling for Buffalo. Everybody's pulling for Baltimore. Seems like everybody now is pulling for the 49ers. Although I did see some sort of made-up graphic by NFL memes where they show those maps, who America's rooting for. They show like a state-by-state. And it's like California, San Francisco 49ers. And then you got Kansas and Missouri Chiefs. And then the rest of America is like gray. It's like, no, but I don't want either of these teams to win. Which, I'll move on to the next topic after this. I just don't get the negativity towards the Super Bowl. It's David Goliath in terms of quarterbacks. It's David Goliath in terms of one team hasn't won in 3 days. The Niners have won less recently than the Cowboys. I'm going to talk about Micah Parsons later in the show. I mean, that's hard. I know they've been to 2 cents in 2012 and in 2019. They've been to 2 cents, not unlike Dallas and a bunch of NFC title games. But Dallas has won a Super Bowl more recently than San Francisco, if you can believe that. Meanwhile, Kansas City looking for their third. Like, there's so many. Like I said, oftentimes when you get the best quarterback in the league against the best overall roster or team, however you want to describe that in the league, those end up being the best Super Bowls. So it should be fun. Okay. Let's shift to the NBA. Let's shift to LeBron James, shift to the Los Angeles Lakers, who were in a rough spot and still aren't in the most ideal of positions. But the Lakers going into Thursday were sitting there at 24-25. LeBron was putting the hourglass tweet, and we were all like, what does that mean? We're a week out of the deadline. Now the deadline is less than 72 hours away. And the 2 games since, East Coast road trip, Lakers knock off the Celtics, a fully healthy Celtics team with no LeBron and no AD. And then on Saturday, come to New York, come to the Mecca, Madison Square Garden, albeit the Knicks didn't have Julius Randle, who was an all-star this year. But the Lakers went in, played well, dominated the fourth quarter defensively, and beat the Knicks 113-105. But a storyline coming out of this is LeBron James, tends to be the case. He is the king after all. LeBron, who dropped 24, 5-5, efficient shooting, 10 for 19 from the field in 40 minutes. LeBron, we'll show you the picture here, wore a towel after the game. Wore a towel after the game. And you can see, if you look at this, sorry for those listening on audio, Spotify, Apple, etc. You can see it's a New York Knicks towel. And you see New York Knicks right there. You could sort of on LeBron's shoulders, you could sort of see the Knicks logo. And there's been a little bit of discussion like, oh, is LeBron trying to send a message? And there's been rumblings. Let's be real. And I love the guy. Most of them started by Stephen A. Smith. Hey, LeBron may want to come to the Knicks. And Brian Windhorst, one of the most trusted sources out there for ESPN, was talking on I think it's the Hoop Collective podcast, if I'm not mistaken. Brian Windhorst had a quote about the LeBron. We can show the LeBron picture while we're doing this. Brian Windhorst said, quote, of course, he was cognizant and aware that LeBron, was putting on a towel that said New York Knicks. Why would he mess with the Knicks? Because he was using the Knicks as a tool to pressure the Lakers. So I don't know if that's totally, and Wendy's one of the best in the business. And he could be speculating, I'm not sure. I don't buy into that as much as others for the simple fact, like I saw one video where Taurean Prince, who plays for the Lakers, and he was wearing a Knicks towel as well. And I mean, is Taurean Prince trying to send a message? He's a nice player, but he is a role player. Is he trying to send a message to the Lakers? Highly doubt it. So maybe he was. Maybe LeBron was sending a message. If there's any message really that needs to be sent, it's one of two things. A, if you want me here, fire Darvin Ham. B, if you're not going to fire Darvin Ham, trade me to a better team. Right? I'm in year 21. I'm still awesome, and I still want to contend for championships. Maybe the West, one of those things. But as crazy as it sounds, like the Lakers right now, look at the standings. The Lakers are 26-25. They've won their last 2 games, but they're still 26-25, just a game above 500. Look at the Western Conference standings. Lakers are 9th. They're a full 3.5 games out of being the 6th seed and not having to participate in the play-in tournament. So they are, by definition, a game over average, a game over mediocre, just by your record, by their record. I got to admit to you, for a team that's 26-25 with 2 great players, LeBron and Anthony Davis, very lofty aspirations and expectations with that team, and those 2 players in particular, I don't think they need to make this big trade at the deadline. I really don't. I know there's been DeJounte Murray rumors. I know this is never going to happen, but there's been rumblings for a few years now. Hey, could Kyrie team up with LeBron? I know there's been some stuff about that, like getting like a consistent scoring guard, which Kyrie is, and like DeJounte Murray is. I get that. I think the team's good as is. Matter of fact, I'll go so far as to say I think it's one of the deepest teams in basketball. Austin Reeves is your third star. Austin Reeves on any given night can give you 20, 25 a game. I mean, you saw him. What he dropped? 27 against the Celtics with no LeBron, with no Anthony Davis. Like the Celtics, the number one guy that can beat them is Austin Reeves. D'Angelo Russell too, but we know he can be streaky. And Austin Reeves went out there and dropped 27 on Boston. Great defense. They've got now Vanderbilt's hurt right now. We'll see if he can get back. But Vanderbilt, when he's on the floor, trust me, as a Warriors fan, Vando guards Steph a lot. Well, Steph, because he's an all-time great. Talk about Steph later in the show. While Steph gets his, it ain't easy. Like Steph's got to work for these points against Vanderbilt, unlike he has to do it sometimes against other defenders. You got Taurean Prince. You got Christian Wood. Like I don't think the depth is the issue with the Lakers. I think the coach is the issue more than anything in Darvin Ham, because in many ways, my guy Barry Grant Jr., big Lakers fan, shout out Barry, often points out how Darvin Ham came from the Bucks under Mike Budenholzer, and it's like, is there a tie there? You know, Budenholzer, the big knock on him from myself as a big-time Bug critic back when he was in Milwaukee, is his adjustments were lacking, to say the very least, and that's kind of what you can say about Darvin Ham. Pre-game adjustments, in-game adjustments, halftime, like whatever the case may be. And so that to me is the biggest issue with the Lakers is Darvin Ham. But even with him last year, they got to the Western Conference Finals. Could they use a piece here, a piece there? Maybe. Listen, if there's anything the Lakers need, and I say this because it's whatever any team needs that has LeBron James. I've said this for years on Carving Up Live, screaming it to the mountaintops. Say it 3 times with me. Shooters, shooters, shooters. That's what they need. And I get D'Angelo, I get D'Angelo Russell can knock down the 3, but he can be inconsistent. He had a horrible, sorry, I apologize, my voice here. Anyways, D'Angelo Russell had a bad Western Conference Finals. Austin Reeves can knock down the 3. Christian Wood occasionally, like Taurean Prince, you have guys who can knock it down, but I'm talking 3-point specials. A guy like Gary Trent Jr. in Toronto, I think would be a perfect fit with the Lakers. I think that would be, because that's why I've said for years, it's why I posed it on Friday, and there's a little piece of me that's just kind of secretly hoping, maybe, just maybe, something happens, Klay's involved, my guy, and I love Klay, but my new guy, Jonathan Kuminga, could be involved. I hate to give JK up, but maybe something like that happens. Bill Simmons thought about this on his podcast recently. And the Warriors go after that guy, LeBron. Like, big reason I fantasize about that is, A, it's LeBron James. But also, I've said I don't think two superstars would fit together in this league better than Steph Curry and LeBron James. Steph, greatest shooter ever. LeBron loves shooters. Steph just gets to run off the ball, run off screens. Bron gets to set him up with open looks. If they double Steph, LeBron's going to get looks at the rim or fadeaway mid-range. Like it'd be darn near unstoppable, especially if they were in their prime. Steph is still in his prime. LeBron is out of his prime, but you can't tell. So to me, that's what the Lakers need to address more than anything is shooting. In terms of, they're a great defensive team. Anthony Davis, for as much as I've criticized him about the whole coin flip Davis thing, and I won't play the little mini video there, the GIF when I say that. A, he really hasn't been this year from an offensive standpoint. B, he wasn't very good offensively on Saturday night. He took that game over defensively. Is it safe to say that Anthony Davis, knock on wood, he stays healthy and plays the 65 games? Is it safe to say Anthony Davis is kind of a shoo-in to get Defensive Player of the Year? Like, I don't even think that's a question. He's been unbelievable all season long in that. And his whole career, but especially this season, he's been fantastic. So, but to a larger degree, or maybe a larger conversation is the better way to frame that, I've talked for years, regardless of sport, that oftentimes teams take on the identity of their superstar. You know, if you think about the Patriots, Gronk is the exception. But a lot of times it was guys who were, very buttoned up, serious, on to the next game. Bill Belichick on to Cincinnati. They kind of took on the identity of their quarterback, Tom Brady. In a similar regard, just in a different sense, the Chiefs kind of taking on the identity of Mahomes. Fun, flashy, here, there. Something big's going to happen. They've taken on the identity of Mahomes. Similar situation in the prime of the Golden State dynasty. They took on the identity of Steph. Free-flowing, ball-moving, just flashy. Like, that's kind of Boston back in that was kind of the Showtime Lakers were in the 80s. The Celtics were kind of the exact opposite. Certainly the bad boy Pistons were the exact opposite, right? Like middle of the country, tough, will probably cross the line in terms of like the Jordan rules and all that. But teams tend to, and that's how Isaiah Thomas was. Teams tend to take on the identity of their star. I think that's where the Lakers are at with LeBron. And here's what I mean by that. Where you see the talent, you see what they're capable of any given night, and then a couple times they'll lay a clunker. I think LeBron, because he is one of the smartest, and not the smartest basketball player ever, recognizes I am in year 21. I'm having a fantastic season. For crying out loud, I'm going to be an all-star starter at age 39. He sees the landscape of the league, sees the landscape of the team, and says, okay, I think we have enough. I think LeBron certainly has questions about Darvin Ham, but he's sitting back and saying, okay, I think we can make a run. We're going to pace ourselves. It's kind of what the Lakers did last year. Now, part of the issue with the Lakers last year, they weren't that good. Like, the roster was not that good. Anthony Davis got hurt. LeBron dealt with injuries, even as he was trying to go after Kareem's scoring record. They were able to move Westbrook and Patrick Beverley and all these guys to get Rui Hachimura, to get D'Angelo Russell, to get Vanderbilt, to get all these guys who ended up helping them get to the conference finals. But it's sort of a coast. And we've seen this in the past. Even LeBron was at his peak in Cleveland. They kind of coast in the regular season, not take November, December, January, all that serious. And then, like, right at the start of after the All-Star break, like early March, you sort of start to see things starting to click together. It starts to work. All of a sudden, here's Austin Reeves. He's getting going. Anthony Davis. There's like some fringe arguments. Hey, is Anthony Davis MVP? And I could see that being the case. I could see a scenario in which the Lakers are hanging around right where they are, around that 9 seed, 8 seed, if they're able to move up a little bit, 8, 9, 10 seed, just kind of hang around. And what did Jerry Jones say? Hang around the rim, hang around the rim. Talked about that last week. Hang around the rim, so to speak. All-Star breaks, or All-Star break ends that Thursday night or Friday night, whenever they play their first game, and they take off. Not saying they're going to like go crazy and get like the 3 seed or something, but avoid the play-in tournament, and which will be huge for them. Give LeBron, give Anthony Davis, gives these guys a little breather, some time off, and then get going in the playoffs. I could see that being the scenario because LeBron can't go. He's not. This is why I say he's not prime LeBron. LeBron can't go 1,000 miles an hour from start to finish the way he used to. I think the last absolute peak of his powers, literally unstoppable LeBron, was 2018 when he put together that crazy run to take that crappy Cleveland team to the finals. That doesn't mean he hasn't still been great. I mean, that's just like, that's the last best of the best of the best LeBron James that we've seen. He can't do that anymore. He's 39 years old, year 21. He's got to coast a little bit. But once the game starts to take on more and more meaning and significance, you see a different LeBron. And therefore, I think you'll see a different Lakers team. Just a thought. I think that's more than possible. Got a comment here by John. How do you feel about your Warriors keeping the core together? Well, I'm going to talk about the Warriors a little late in the show in about a half hour. Look, and I'll address this further, but since you asked, John, I think the idea of keeping Clay, and I might be perceived going back to the summer as a Clay doubter, hater, skeptic, whatever the case may be. I'm as big of a Klay Thompson fan as there is. I mean, I was the one who religious, like me and Stephen A were like on the same wavelength, where for years, like when Klay Thompson comes back, the Warriors are going to win the championship. When he comes back there, and sure enough, we won the championship in 2022, and Klay was a big factor in that. But he's not the same in terms of shooting percentage he takes. I watch every single dribble of every single Warriors game. Guy just takes some bad shots, and he misses wide open ones. He's good for the occasional 25-point game. If you get lucky, 30-point game from time to time, but he's not. And again, he's expensive, older, declining physically, forcing shots. on an expiring contract. He's gonna be a free agent this summer. Why are you? What is the incentive in keeping Klay other than Steph's loyalty? Because that report came out, and I think some of this you might be referring to, John. I don't want to assume, but I'm sure this plays into it. Is the report that that the Warriors will not make any moves, especially regarding their core, unless Steph okays it. Which to me is like, okay, so now you're just shifting the blame to Steph. If that report is true, okay, that just makes Steph out to be the bad guy. Because some, I don't think that many, but some Warriors fans will look like, well, Steph, do you really want to win? Well, yeah, but if the power's in Steph's hands, he's going to stick with Klay. He's going to stick with Draymond. He should stick with Draymond. Okay, you saw the Warriors. You've seen the Warriors throughout their history. They're flatly not the same team without Draymond Green. And so offensively, defensively, the whole bit. So absolutely keep Draymond. He's still very much not the same player he used to be. Numbers and film don't lie. He's still an impact player. Klay's not. He's not. But I'll talk about the Warriors in terms of that later in the show. Patrick Brown in the comments. Happy Monday, everyone. Stay safe and sound. What's up, Patrick? Great to have you here in the comments today. Got a lot going on. Again, Super Bowl week. Super Bowl, what do they call it? Super Bowl opening night, I think it is. When the players, usually they go to either stadium or an arena and answer the questions. I'm sure Travis will get plenty of Taylor Swift questions. By the way, great night for Taylor Swift last night at the Grammys, right? She won. What did she win for? I think it was for Album of the Year. She announced her new album coming out mid-April. I've got some Swifties within my household that are very excited about that, understandably so. I gotta admit though, I didn't watch a ton of the Grammys. I'm more of an Oscars guy, I always have been. But I did watch a little bit of the Grammys. And when my man Luke Combs was performing Fast Car with Tracy Chapman, that was so good. I hope they have a recorded version of that. I hope they record a version of Fast Car because love it. Great song. But I watched that performance, I watched a few other ones. And from time to time, man, they'd show Taylor. I'd show Taylor sing along these songs at the Grammys last night, and I was really, tell you what, I could barely sleep last night. It's just, oof. It's a wonder I even made it through. It's just, it almost ruined the experience for me. I'm not gonna lie to you. It almost ruined the experience for me. It really did. Tyler Hilton, yo, Tyler, what's up? Everybody, feel free to chime in the comment section. Want to know what your thoughts are on what I'm saying, or just even about anything else in the world of sports and beyond that. But, like I said, I've always been more of an Oscar guy than a Grammys guy. But listen, I catch the Grammys from time to time. Catch a little bit of it. But I do want to move on, though, to the Washington Commanders. Because I think that and Washington fans have suffered for quite some time, in large part due to the now former owner. Thank God for them. Thank God for the league, Dan Snyder. But now Josh Harris owns the Commanders. Magic Johnson's, of course, involved. And Magic is one of those guys where everything he touches turns to gold. And Washington seems to be kind of on the uptick. Where, yes, they only won 4 games last year. Yes, they had the second pick of the draft. But that's, in terms of draft position, that's probably a good thing. But they want a Ben Johnson. And that's kind of the way to win in today's NFL, primarily, is offensive head coaches. I don't think we've had a defensive head coach in the Super Bowl since Belichick in 2018. It just doesn't happen anymore. However, you can, because they want a Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson turned them and the Seahawks down, returning to Detroit. So that was a big blow to Washington. But what did they do? It's okay. Sucks. Would have loved to get this guy. We're going to pivot. We're going to adjust on the fly. There's a defensive coordinator in Dallas, Dan Quinn, who, aside from Micah Parsons and Trayvon Diggs, there's not anywhere near an elite player on that defense. And turn him into one of the more respectable units, top 10. I think every year Dan Quinn was there, they were top 10 defense. Okay, we can hire that guy. He has a good history as a head coach. He's been to a Super Bowl, has a couple of playoff appearances under his belt. We'll bring him in. And then what did they do? Almost identical to what the Houston Texans did with D'Amico Ryans. What I've been imploring, and I think my Steelers did it right, finally, is you have a defensive coach, now hire a creative offensive guy to run the offense. That's what Washington did. They got Kliff Kingsbury. Now, some are like, Kliff Kingsbury? I've been a Kingsbury critic for years now. This is a guy who had a losing record in college, went to the Arizona Cardinals, got fired after his 4th season, offense deteriorated quickly. Like, I get that. But 2 things to keep in mind with Kliff Kingsbury, who's now the new offensive coordinator for the Commanders after a contractual dispute with the Raiders, is the reason that fell through. He was going to be their OC. It fell through, some contract stuff. Washington gave him things in his deal that the Raiders wouldn't, so he's with the Raiders now. I'm sorry, he's with the Commanders now. Okay. Here's why it makes sense. Kliff Kingsbury is a guy who led the Cardinals. If I have this number right, I thought I had the stat earlier. Hang on. Yeah, Kliff Kingsbury's offense in Arizona. Sorry, I literally lost the stat. I don't know how I lost this. I sincerely apologize, folks. Okay, so the Kliff Kingsbury with Arizona, his second to last season there, which was also happened to be Kyler Murray's last season in Arizona. They were 11th in the NFL, I think, in scoring. And then it deteriorated to like 21st or something, and then Kyler got hurt that year. It was kind of a disaster. They fired Kingsbury. Here's the thing. Washington has not been as high as 16th in scoring offense since 2016 when Kirk Cousins was there. By the way, you know who else was there in Washington that year? Sean McVay. So I think that made a little bit of a difference, Washington. But now you bring in Kliff Kingsbury. He has a history with successful offenses. He has a history slowly developing young, talented quarterbacks, which Washington presumably will have one. Whether it be Drake May, there's some Caleb Williams rumors. I don't think it happens. I think if Chicago does not take Caleb number 1 or trades down with Washington and the Commanders get the first pick, it would be the single biggest mistake, the single dumbest mistake the Chicago Bears have ever made in their history, and they made plenty of those. But Kliff Kingsbury, you got to remember this. When he took the Cardinals job, in coaching years, guy was a kid. When he took the job, not when he coached his first game, when he took the job, he was still in his 30s. He was 39 years old. He's 44, going on 45 this season. He's got experience. I made this mistake with Jason Kidd, different sport with the Dallas Mavericks, he was at the time with the Nets, where Jason Kidd coached the Nets. Then he went to Milwaukee. They got better without him, and I was kind of down on Jason Kidd as a coach of the Mavs. Did a pretty good job in Dallas. I mean, first year there, got to the Western Conference Finals. I think Luka had a thing or two to do with that, but Jason Kidd did a really good job that year and has done a good job since. Sometimes guys are young. Sometimes guys need another opportunity, a second chance. I think that's where we're at with Kingsbury, and this is the way to win in today's NFL. If you have a defensive head coach. Because defensive head coaches, what do we know about them? They tend to be conservative, not take that many big of a risks, kind of completely ignore analytics altogether. And how's that worked out? Haven't had a defensive coach in the Super Bowl since 2018, Bill Belichick. But you can win with a defensive head coach, which is why I was very excited about the Arthur Smith hiring Pittsburgh. If you hire a creative young offensive guy, that's the way to do it. That's what they did with Kliff Kingsbury. So listen, Washington is an organization that in the span of 2 short years went from bottom feeders, irrelevant, barely, I shouldn't say barely watched, but they've always had some level of talent, but just always constantly not meeting the bar, in large part due to the worst managing owner I've ever seen in my life, Dan Snyder. All of a sudden, he's out. Smart ownership group, Josh Harris, Magic Johnson comes in. Now you bring in Dan Quinn. You rebound after missing out on Ben Johnson. You bring in Kingsbury. Now you're going to draft a quarterback, and they'll be in pretty good shape. You know, the defense for Washington, which I think was dead last in scoring defense this year. So there's literally nowhere to go but up. So you have a guy in Quinn who can fix the defense, can address it in the draft through free agency, etc., and maybe through the trade market as well. And a guy in Kingsbury who can help develop the young quarterback. That is what wins in today's NFL when you have a defensive head coach. So credit to Washington. They are seeing where the game is trending, and they're adjusting to it. That's what the smart that's what drove me nuts about Tomlin, and more so with Belichick, because at least Tomlin could draft. Belichick couldn't draft. That was his issue. But New England, it was, we're going to stick with the same old thing. Bill, the league's changed. Why do you think Belichick didn't get a job this cycle? You know, that's something to do with it. So, really good move by Washington. Really good move by Washington. I like it a lot. I really do. Let's see what we got right here. Patrick Brown, I guess this means Bieniemy could be out as the offensive coordinator unless another team gives him the title. Haven't heard much on the topic, and I'm curious. Well, what I think, Patrick, is going to happen is Bieniemy, part of the, listen, most coaches tend to move on from the previous staff. So what I think is going to happen is Kansas City, regardless of what happens in the Super Bowl, Kansas City brings Bieniemy back next year. And that could be, listen, it's already a crime as is. Bieniemy hasn't gotten a head coaching job yet, but that would, to me, be the best case of any. With the Chiefs, listen, I get the receiving core is bad, but it's the same receiving core for the Chiefs that was there last year, just with Juju Smith-Schuster instead of Rashid Rice. You're telling me Juju Smith-Schuster is the difference in offense being one of the best in football and one of the, well, not one of the worst, but vastly underachieving given the talent of their quarterback and star tight end. Like, Juju's not the difference in that. He's irrelevant in New England. Disappeared. That would be the best case for Bieniemy. Offense is great in Kansas City, despite the receiver talent. You leave, it's not close to as good. Even if you win the Super Bowl, it's not as good off. You're not as good of a team offensively. You kind of had to adjust how you play games, how you win games in the postseason and in the regular season. Then you come back, and we'll see what happens, and the offense gets back to where it was in 2024. That's what I think. Bieniemy goes back to Kansas City is my guess, Patrick. I think that seems to be the most likely scenario to happen. But that's where we're at. That's where we're at. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I think it works. I think it makes sense, though, for sure. Okay. I'm going to have to come up with a nickname. I've got 7 months of off season to figure it out. I'm going to come up with some nickname for the Dallas Cowboys because going into last season, around training camp, I came up with the moniker of this being, or this past season now, being the Yoda season for the Dallas Cowboys. They're like, what, Yoda? What does that mean? Little green Jedi. What is that supposed to mean? I'll tell you what it means. Remember Yoda's iconic quote? Yoda's got plenty of them, but remember, do or do not, there is no try from The Empire Strikes Back. Great line. And I looked at that and was like, you know what? That's the Cowboys. It's either they're gonna take off, get close, who knows, maybe win the Super Bowl, but get darn close. NFC title game, I picked them to go to the Super Bowl and lose to the Chiefs. Get there, or they'll fall flat in their face. Like this was not going to be a season where they had a good regular season, won a playoff game, and then just sort of flamed out in the divisional round like they've done a lot for the last 29 years. This is going to be boom, or it's going to be bust. The bust was going to be like miss playoffs, get knocked out in round one, and that is exactly what happened. It's going to be boom or bust. It was bust, unfortunately, for the Cowboys and their fans. I'm going to have to come up with a new nickname for Dallas this year, but it's going to revolve something around reality shows. Maybe I'll call them like the Kardashians. Heck, I don't think the Kardashians are this dysfunctional. Something like that in the NFL. Most of it these days, usually it's Jerry. Usually it's Jerry. But nowadays, you got Dak not saying a word. CeeDee Lamb not saying a word. I know Trayvon Diggs is hurt. You got Aiden Diggs, Trayvon's son, making more headlines than Trayvon Diggs these days. You've got, Stephon Gilmore, smart veteran, not going to say anything. Played for the Patriots back in the day, not going to say anything. Mike McCarthy's been quiet outside that press conference. Jerry has been, but come on, it's Jerry. It's what we've come to know and expect. Everybody's been quiet. And here's Micah Parsons at the Pro Bowl, which he made deservedly so, no question about it. But now there's no Pro Bowl game. Thank God. The game was unwatchable. At least it's flag football now. At least there's points. At least it's somewhat exciting, even though I didn't watch. But the Pro Bowl games. And at one point, some of the best players compete in a game of Madden. They've been doing this for years now. I think they've been doing it since at least 2020 when it was the COVID year, pandemic year. A lot of guys just played Madden against each other. And Micah Parsons it was NFC versus AFC. Micah Parsons, NFC player, obviously plays for the Cowboys. And he was facing Tyreek Hill, superstar receiver for the Dolphins, and David Njoku, tight end for the Cleveland Browns, who made the Pro Bowl on the AFC side. And take a listen. It's about a minute long. Take a listen to what Micah Parsons told David Njoku, and I'll have a strong reaction on this, but I'm going to do something after this that I've never done in my life in the history of Carving It Up Live. But watch this first. Micah Parsons, his exchange with Browns tight end David Njoku.
I thought he did amazing. He made great adjustments. He obviously showed why Cleveland's Cleveland. And
Whoa. That's a crazy shot.
Okay.
That's a crazy shot.
Don't give us that political.
David, you have an opportunity for a rebuttal here. Obviously, that first half didn't go the way you wanted.
It's cool. It's cool.
Okay.
You gotta understand one thing, And excuse my voice, it's gone. When the monsters come with big bosses, one thing you gotta understand is he said Cleveland to Cleveland, but we're both here. I mean, we're both playing this Madden game.
I think that's a shot.
So you gotta make it make sense.
Any person who's reenacting Meek Mill lyrics is like, I can't take him serious. I mean, but am I lying though? God, you try to be lyrical, but don't
not
even get
lyrical. I'm saying we're both fitting.
Lyrically, I'm supposed to represent.
He has a good point, bro. We all here.
So what are you saying? Cleveland.
Okay, fair enough. Well, let's take it back to this game.
Okay, so Micah's quote, the one that made headlines, is he showed why Cleveland is Cleveland. And Cleveland's going to be Cleveland. I'm about to do something. It makes me sick to my stomach. I don't think I've ever done it in the 4.5-year history of my show. I'm going to defend Cleveland. That just makes my stomach churn. It just, hate it. But I'm going to defend Cleveland for a second. Micah Parsons does realize that the Cowboys have just as many conference title game appearances as the Browns since 1996, right? Does he know that? I don't know if Micah is a student of the game the way other players are. Does he know that? Hats off to David Njoku for sitting up there and saying, I mean, you could say Cleveland's going to be Cleveland. And by the way, David Njoku didn't hide from that. He's like, yeah, you know what? We had a nice season and flamed out in the playoffs and got blown out by Houston. Okay, we didn't go very far as we wanted to. But nice job for Njoku for acknowledging that and then turning around and saying, what'd you do, bruh? You do nothing. Yeah, you know what Micah Parsons did? And Micah Parsons had some quotes the other day. Maybe I'll detail this further. I've talked way too much about Micah. Every show, including mine, has. But Micah had the quote the other day where he's like, we need to get the right players in, or we need to get some players that'll help get us over the top. Acting like he was not the issue at all in the Cowboys playoff loss to Green Bay. You know what Micah Parsons did against the Packers? He had one more tackle than I did, and I was sitting on my couch watching the game. So David Njoku stood up there saying, you know what? Yeah, you're right. We didn't do what we hoped to do. Yeah, Cleveland tends to be pretty darn unsuccessful in the playoffs. But you're sitting there acting like you did something special. You had one tackle in a 16-point playoff loss in a game that you were down by 1 million points at home against a team full of kids in Green Bay. Man, miss me with that. You're acting up here like you done something. The utter lack of self-awareness is unreal. At least Jerry from time to time would be like, I don't believe that we're where we need to be, but I tell you what, I think this team could get to the Super Bowl, but at least we're hanging around the rim. Jerry, at least compared to Micah, has somewhat realistic expectations. I mean, like Njoku said, we're here sitting on the couch at the Pro Bowl playing a video game. And by the way, Cleveland, listen, both Dallas and Cleveland got blown out, ironically, in Texas. Cleveland on a Saturday, Dallas on a Sunday. Both Cleveland and Dallas got blown out in the wild card round, okay? Their seasons ended identically. But the Browns, it drives me crazy to defend Cleveland. Hate it. Oh my gosh, I cannot stand defending the Browns. However, you got to be objective. Cleveland, from an injury standpoint to their key players, had the season from hell. What did Clark Griswold say in Christmas Vacation? Look around yourself, Ellen. We're at the threshold of hell when the house is just blown to bits and the dogs have eaten everything and the tree blows up and a cat dies, like all this stuff that happens. That's where the Browns were. Deshaun got hurt. Dorian Thompson-Robinson got hurt. P.J. Walker wasn't very good. Nick Chubb, second game of the year against my Steelers, Monday Night Football, blows out his knee and is gone for the year. Nick Chubb is the very reason, he's like the Browns' Christian McCaffrey. He's the reason that offense runs and is successful. So they signed Joe Flacco off his couch, old man Joe, comes in and is playing, the turnovers aside, like one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and the Browns make the playoffs, and we're road favorites over a team quarterbacked by C.J. Stroud. Yeah, they got blown out. Yes, I was overjoyed to see that. But by and large, this was not a disaster season for Cleveland. It could have been. But to the credit of the coaches, of the players, they didn't allow it to be. Now you have Dallas, who has lofty expectations, as is always the case, but especially this year. Hey, NFC's never been weaker. Hey, not only do we win the division, we get the 2 seed. Can't do much better than that other than San Francisco getting the old 1 seed. And we don't draw the Rams, who won a Super Bowl within the last half decade. We don't draw who was the 5? Philadelphia, they would have beaten Philadelphia, but Philadelphia did get to the Super Bowl last year for what it's worth. Here's who we draw. A team with a quarterback in his first year starting, the youngest playoff team in a half century. And we get the doors blown off them. And Micah Parsons has the audacity, I'm defending Cleveland, ladies and gentlemen, to sit up there and act like, yeah, I mean, you're here, we're Dallas. Like, you're a little old Cleveland. Bro, you've been just as successful as Cleveland. Cute, you have a few more playoff wins, only one of which you were a part of in 2022. Didn't really do much in that game. That was all Dak against Tampa Bay, neither here nor there. Listen, we would all agree Micah Parsons is a better player, objectively better player at his position than Njoku is. But even still, Njoku is a very good tight end. Very good tight end. Micah Parsons, any given day, can be the best player on the field. He's that talented. Okay. Of course, David Njoku doesn't have an iconic moment in his career because he's not an iconic player. Neither is Micah, but people compare him to Lawrence Taylor. Not sure why. Name the iconic moment in Micah Parsons' career. Name it. It'd be different if Dallas made the Super Bowl last year, or if Dallas finally actually got to an NFC title game and lost a close one to the Niners again. You were the first team in the history, and I get the 7 seed has only existed for 4 years, so a little bit of context there. You're the first team in the history of the National Football League postseason to lose to a 7 seed. And you do so at home. At one point, you're down by 30, and you have 1 tackle. But you have the audacity days before that in your podcast to say, and why Micah Parsons is doing podcasts like he's Draymond Green. Draymond Green's one of the greatest basketball players of all time. Say what you want, Draymond Green's going to the Hall of Fame. Micah Parsons remains to be seen. Micah Parsons say, hey, we need the players. And don't blame me. Blame the scheme. I just do what the coaches tell me to do. Man's acting like out there like he didn't play like a bum against Green Bay. Come on, man. Out here going after David Njoku. What did David Njoku do? Heck, what did Cleveland do? I don't know. Defending Cleveland makes me sick to my stomach. But listen, and I'd say the same thing if Dak Prescott said this. For the record, y'all know how I feel about Dak. Love Dak more than just about everybody. But you know why Dak wouldn't say this? Because Dak has self-awareness. CeeDee Lamb has self-awareness. Other players of the Cowboys have self-awareness. Micah Parsons has not an ounce of it. Jeez. I mean, what? Bro, what are you talking about? Oh, Lord. One day of the year, one day of my lifetime, I'm pro Cleveland. Unbelievable. Patrick Brown, let's see if Patrick can help me out here. I'll sum this up mildly. Dallas' Super Bowl is Thanksgiving Day. Big halftime show and blowout over Washington is the standard. Until a loud voice and leader emerges, this is typical Cowboys offseason. I disagree with you there, Patrick. Until a loud voice, no, Dallas needs to pipe it down a little bit. And my criticism in that regard has historically been of Jerry Jones, as is almost everybody's. Doesn't matter the quarterback, doesn't matter the coach, doesn't matter the team, doesn't matter. You got one constant there for the last 29 years, and he's run the franchise into the ground from a production standpoint. If this is, obviously we know Dak's the leader, but if this is the guy who Cowboys fans or those who believe the Cowboys will do anything, I mean, like I did this year, I said Dallas would get to the Super Bowl before the season. I was dead wrong, obviously, on that. If this is the guy you're looking for to take the franchise to the next level, I'm sorry to hear that. Place your faith in the wrong guy. I swear, listen, you think I'm mad now? if Micah Parsons, wins the award. If Micah Parsons places higher in the Defensive Player of the Year voting than TJ Watt, I think my head might actually explode alive on this show. Wow. Wow. Patrick, CD was mature about the question on Dak, mature and honest without throwing jabs. I didn't see what CD said. Was CD doing like a media appearance during like Super Bowl week or something? I didn't. Yeah, because I know CD was at the Pro Bowl. I didn't watch it. Only Pro Bowl content I saw, because the Manning brothers, Eli coached the NFC, Peyton coached the AFC. Only content I saw in that regard was this morning or this afternoon where Eli was doing I don't know what it was, like the rap diss of Tom Brady. Wasn't bad. I congratulate Eli in that regard. There you go. Yeah, see, Goodell has a comment here. Has a comment. That'd be nice if Roger Goodell commented. How about that? Roger Goodell said this about Bill Belichick. He said, quote, "I think he'll be missed, but I have a feeling he'll still be around the game," end quote. Which, that can mean a lot of things. Belichick may go into he may have to go to broadcast this year because obviously nobody employed him as a head coach. But let's see what we have. Patrick, someone asked him during the Pro Bowl on his relationship with Dak. Okay. And CD doesn't seem like the type of guy to me that would, even if there was, and we saw in that postseason game, then I'll move on to the last topic with Steph. Even though during that playoff game, it was weird. I mean, Burkhart and Olsen on Fox were pointing it out like from the jump, like how Dak and CeeDee Lamb, not only were they not on the same page, but they were like kind of like, I don't want to say bickering, but just kind of going back and forth with each other, like let's just call it a heated conversation. It's like, what is up with these guys? Like, these dudes have been just in sync all season. I called it all season long, like the most automatic quarterback-receiver connection in football. And then all of a sudden, this playoff game, they are just not on the same page, and both seem to be frustrated with the other about it. It was odd. It was very, very odd. But that said, even if there is any animosity, yeah, CD is a mature dude. So is Dak. They're not going to take shots at each other. They're not going to do that because they understand. Again, they like self-awareness. It's the most underrated quality trait a human being can have, is understanding who they are, where they're at, and where they need to go. Micah Parsons obviously has none of that. It's wow. The as Stephen A. Smith would say, what does he say? The temerity, the unmitigated goal. I didn't do a very good Stephen A. impression there, but you get the idea. All right. Last topic, though. Steph Curry. Don't know if you heard of him. I've heard he's good at basketball. Little birdie told me that. Steph Curry of my Golden State Warriors on Saturday night in the ATL. Second night of a back-to-back in Atlanta with half the roster hurt. He dropped 60. Steph Curry, 60 points on 22 of 38 shooting, 10 for 23. 23 three-point attempts is wild. He's like the only player in the league that could get away with that. Maybe Dame as well. But 22 of 38, 10 for 23 from three-point range, 60 points on the night. By the way, Steph Curry, this is a wild stat, now joins Kobe as the only players in the history of the league, age 35 or older, to score 60 in a game. Obviously, who could forget Kobe's 60-point game? It was his last game ever against the Jazz. When he dropped 60, went crazy in the fourth quarter, and won that game for the Lakers in his farewell at what used to be called Staples Center. Steph now joins that club. And it's, again, just sort of like another knock in the box that Steph is the sixth greatest player ever. We can discuss that and debate that another day. However, the Warriors lost that game 141-134 in overtime. And I actually live tweet a lot of Warriors games. I watch every single one, live tweet most of them. And I was watching this, and when the game was over, because for context, Steph hit a shot. He got to his 52nd point on a little runner, a little floater shot in the fourth quarter, about 15-odd seconds left in the game to put the Warriors up 2. Atlanta called timeout. DeJounte Murray makes a shot. Steph barely misses a game winner, a little floater off the glass. Game goes to overtime. Atlanta has the momentum. They end up winning the game. But I tweeted after the game, I'm like, the Warriors have lost so many rip your heart out of your chest type of games. I think the Warriors local broadcast, Bob Fitzgerald, Clint Azabuki, shout out to those guys. They do a fantastic job covering the games, calling the games. I think Bob Fitzgerald mentioned a stat where the Warriors are like 2-9 in games decided by 3 points or less. So they are inches Like, this is a situation, the Warriors are 21-25, 4 games that are 500. It is a situation where they're just getting housed. They're not. They've been in more clutch games, which clutch games, for those you don't know, are games in which the score is within 5 points or less with 5 minutes to go at any point. That's called a clutch game. Warriors have been in more clutch games than anybody. So they're close. Just can't finish games. And you say, Bryson, why can't they finish games? It's exactly why. Because as great as Steph is, as much of a catalyst as Draymond still is, as many, even with the injuries, solid offensive options as the Warriors have, be it Jonathan Kuminga, who had a streak broken where he almost had a double-digit game streak of scoring 20 points or more. Jonathan Kuminga has really come into his own. And hey, my preseason prediction of him winning Most Improved Player might be back on. Might be a good bet in Vegas right now. But Jonathan Kuminga is a viable option. You got guys on the, come off the bench. Dario Saric is a viable offensive option. Chris Paul, when healthy, viable offensive option. Moses Moody as well. I like Moses Moody. Always have. Warriors are 11th in the league in offense. They're not bad. They're just 0.3 points away. I saw the stat earlier. 0.3 points off from the Atlanta Hawks for being a top 10 offense in terms of offensive rating. So they can put the ball in the hoop. That's not their issue. I mean, you look at the Warriors, some of their losses this year, and they play the Brooklyn Nets for the record in a half hour. Warriors, like in some of their losses, they lost scoring 134 against Atlanta. They scored 144 in double overtime, lost to the Lakers. Scored 133 in regulation, lost to the Sacramento Kings. They've scored 118 and lost. They've scored 118 again and lost. They've scored 127 and lost to Denver. Like, that has been the issue for Golden State. It's not scoring points. It's getting stops. Folks, Golden State is bottom five in the NFL. NBA in terms of defense. Bottom 5. Can't stop anybody. I mean, right there, like the Hawks game is a prime example. Your best player's going crazy. It's got to a point where the crowd in Atlanta is almost rooting for Steph, a little bit Madison Square Garden style. And he hits a runner, puts you up 2, and he can't get a stop at the end. DeJounte Murray hits, albeit a tough, pull-up jump shot. But you couldn't get a stop when you needed to. Couldn't get a stop when you blew an 18-point lead with 6 minutes to go against the Denver Nuggets. Couldn't get a stop against the Lakers multiple times. Remember, Steph hits the go-ahead. Again, Steph's doing everything he can offensively. Hits the go-ahead bomb 3 to put you up a single point. Scores 46, double overtime. Everybody's gassed, and he can't get a stop because LeBron drives to the rim, gets fouled, and hits both free throws to win it. So the reason I say that, as wild as this sounds, this Warriors team, I talk about the Lakers sort of flipping a switch, but a lot of that was because last year and flipping a switch this year. I think they're going to flip a switch this year because LeBron is going to flip a switch because he knows the games will take on a greater significance as time goes on. March, especially once April rolls around the time the All-Star break ends. I've said before, this Warriors team reminds me a lot of last year's Lakers team, where your best player is playing incredible, especially for his age. The other guys are good. You can score the basketball. You just can't get stops. And you're hanging around outside of the play-in tournament going into February. Like the Lakers last year. And listen, I'm still holding out hope for a potential LeBron trade, but that's probably not realistic if we're being honest. I think the Warriors, like the Lakers, just need a couple moves here and there. The Lakers went out and got Rui Hachimura. They got Jarrett Vanderbilt. They got D'Angelo Russell. They got off the Russell Westbrook contract. Like the Warriors, the Warriors are in a similar spot with Andrew Wiggins, where his contract is, yikes. You can move off that. I would not be an advocate of moving off of Chris Paul, but that would free up some space for you. I mean, I'd move off Wiggins. Listen, Wiggins, I've been a defender of Wiggins for a while. He's just not the same player he used to be. I'd move off Wiggins before Chris Paul because I think Chris Paul's leadership is invaluable, and he's been one of the most consistent players on the team when healthy. It's almost identical to the Lakers last year, where what I think they need is a couple of nice, like long wings who can shoot the 3, who can knock down the 3, but more important than that, can defend. There's 2 Warriors I trust on the team to consistently get stops in their one-on-one matchups. Draymond Green and Jonathan Kuminga. Everybody else I don't trust. Steph, Clay, Looney, Chris Paul. Chris Paul can still play to be defense, not close to what he used to. Sarge can't guard me. I mean, it's just, you can't get stops. Kuminga can, Draymond can, that's it. That is what wins in today's NBA. Yes, you got to have the superstar. In this case, it's obviously Steph. You got to have some nice role players, some nice complementary pieces. Kuminga, Draymond. I would like us to move off of Klay. Doesn't look like they're going to do that, so you just got to roll with that. Bring some young, athletic wings who can shoot. That's exactly what the Lakers did last year, and they got 4 wins away from an NBA Finals. I mean, you're telling me if the Warriors get in the postseason, you're telling me Minnesota is looking forward to playing Steph Curry? You think the Timberwolves would much rather play the inexperienced Pelicans or the, maybe Sacramento? Sacramento scared the living crap out of me in that series, but you think they wouldn't much rather play Houston? Listen, like this kid a lot, the kid I'm about to mention, I think he's going to be a star, potential superstar in the NBA, but I think they'd rather play like a Minnesota Timberwolves and Oklahoma City Thunder. I think they'd much rather play an Alfred Sengun for Houston than a Steph Curry in Golden State. The Warriors are not crazy, massive changes away from contention. As I mentioned, they're 2-9 in games decided by 3 points or less. Flip a few of those, they're right in the thick of the play-in tournament with momentum going into the second half of the season. But you got to be able to get stops. You've got to. That we talk often about the shooting and the motion offense and Steph doing what he does and Klay and the Splash Brothers and KD join. It's unstoppable. Oh my God. Every single year the Warriors have won a championship, they've been top 10 in defense. Right now, they're bottom 10 in defense. Now, I don't think adding a few players is going to bump them up into the top 10. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, probably doesn't. But they're not sweeping changes away. Listen, I still think Denver's the team to beat, and it's going to be really hard for anybody to get through the Nuggets. Everybody else, it's fair game. Everybody else think the Warriors can beat in a 7-game series. Don't trust Minnesota whatsoever. Don't trust them at all. Don't trust Chris Finch. Love Anthony Edwards. Rudy Gobert is horrible in the playoffs. Cat has had some clunkers in the postseason. Don't trust Minnesota at all. Don't believe in them in the slightest. OKC, I really, 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 really like. I just think they're too young. I do. Sacramento, Golden State literally just beat Sacramento a year ago. Phoenix started to scare me a little bit, but still at the same time, I don't trust them defensively, and D-Book, as great as he's been at the point guard position, don't know if he can do that in the postseason. He's got to show it to me. I think the Warriors can be anybody in a 7-game series. Denver scares me. I think Denver is, I'm not going to say they're the odds-on favorite to win the West, but I will be, let's just put this, I won't be terribly shocked if in 4 months we're talking about the Denver Nuggets taking on blank out of the Eastern Conference in the NBA Finals. Add a couple of athletic wings. Ensure you can be able to, you can never stop great players, but make it tough. Ensure you'll be able to lock up guys, or not lock up, to be able to take guys like LeBron, like Anthony Edwards, like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, like De'Aaron Fox. I'm saying like Kevin Durant. These are some great perimeter scorers in the Western Conference, especially compared to the East. And that was the difference for the Warriors in 2022. Because Klay, who used to be their primary perimeter defender, after Klay had the injuries, wasn't the same guy in that end. Who stepped up for them? Andrew Wiggins. He guarded Ja Morant in the second round. Then he guarded and did a phenomenal job. Guarded Luka in the Western Conference Finals. Guarded Tatum. Did a great job on Tatum in the NBA Finals. I mean, Andrew Wiggins was the second best player on the Warriors in that title run in 2022. Wasn't Draymond, wasn't Klay. It was Wiggins. I'm not saying, by the way, Wiggins, ironically, 2 years later, is like the most likely player, according to all the reports. Shams being the front of that pack, Wiggins is the most likely player to be dealt. There's discussions with Dallas, with Indiana. I think the Warriors need size. More than that, length, athleticism, and hopefully they can shoot too. Offense isn't the problem in Golden State. Defense is. Fix that, Warriors are back to being contenders in the Western Conference. Bar none, no questions asked. That's where I'm at my team. I am still... Listen, the Lakers were the 13 seed at this point last year, and we're one of the last 4 teams standing. Okay? The Heat were the 8th seed, came 3 wins away from a title. With not close to the roster of Boston or of Milwaukee. Heck, maybe even of the Knicks. Knicks had a really good roster last year, even better this season. Not that far off. Just need some little tweaks, just like last year's Lakers did, and the Warriors can get over the top, and who knows? Maybe they do take Denver. Maybe. Wouldn't be terribly confident about it. Anybody else? Be very confident. All right, because you don't want to see Steph Curry in a 7-game series. You just don't. One of those guys you almost see with the money, chips on the table, money on the line. All right, that is all the time we have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by. As always, be sure to catch Carving Up Live on Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, right here on Twitter, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. Of course, be sure to like, share, comment. Take 2 seconds out of your day. Hit that big red subscribe button down there if you're on YouTube. Helps the channel grow exponentially. We're trying to get the late season push here, trying to get to 1,000 subscribers by Super Bowl 58. That was our preseason goal. And then get one last late push. We could potentially get to that. So if you have subscribed, thank you so much. Your support means everything to me and to everybody associated with this show. Please tell your friends about it, your family about it, everybody you know about Carving Up Live. Let's continue to grow this show, grow this product, and be the best that we can be and grow this Carving Up Live family. If you have not subscribed, again, if you're on YouTube, just take a couple seconds. Big red subscribe button down there. Hit it, and you're part of the Carving Up family. Just as important, be sure to go subscribe to the Grid Network. That is GRYD, the Grid Podcast Network, right here on YouTube, as well as any and everywhere you get your favorite podcast, be it Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, any and everywhere that you get your favorite podcast. Fun show today. Start of Super Bowl week, Super Bowl Monday night or Super Bowl opening night, whatever they call it. Maybe have some, I know as one very smart human being once said, as you know, it'll probably piss off some dads, brads, and chads. Never thought to say that line in my show. But maybe a Taylor Swift topic. Back-to-back weeks on Wednesday. You never know. You never know. It's been a great year for Taylor. Shout out to her. All right. I'll see you on Wednesday. Please stay safe out there. Please be sure to take care of your physical as well as your mental health. And please, 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 I beg of you, contact your local state representatives and senators to demand change for gun violence in America. We have got to address this problem ASAP as soon as we can because it is rampant in this country. We've got to address it. Appreciate everybody stopping by. See you on Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, Twitter and on YouTube. A lot more Super Bowl talk, NBA talk, trading deadlines on Thursday. So there's going to be a lot to discuss throughout the week as it passes on. More guests throughout the week to give Super Bowl analysis and predictions. See you on Wednesday. Stay safe out there. God bless y'all. Peace out. Just a few pieces away. We're close, man. I'm telling you. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube. And be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.